Hello, it's Philip Carr-Gomm uh, on a Monday evening, the 12th of November, 2018. Tea with the Druid 49. So do say if you're here and where you hail from. Ellie Horn's joined, that's great. So it's good to see you, Ellie. And just imagine that you're gathering in a sacred grove, in a clearing in the forest, and gradually gathering, feeling us coming. Jörg from Berlin, Karen, Katie, Andre, Ellie, Viviane, little blue thumbs and pink hearts flying around. That's great. So I thought I wanted to explore a topic with you today. It's come to me. It's this concept of taking refuge. I'm not entirely sure why I wanted to talk with you about it today, but I think it's perhaps seeing these images of people in California, the devastation with the fires, being aware of what difficult circumstances so many people live in. So let's explore this for a little bit, and then let's have a meditation that perhaps can illuminate us a bit more. So, taking refuge, taking shelter. I don't know what it's like in your culture, but kind of, I suppose, in the kind of culture that I've been brought up in, that the term is used for people who are really down on their luck. So you have shelters for the homeless, you have refuges for women who've been abused by their partners. And so it's associated with a social need that is very real, very important. And so when we think about ourselves taking shelter or refuge, it's quite easy to slip into a feeling that you don't need that. That's not something that somebody who is competent and reasonably safe in the world needs. But then you see that this term is used in many spiritual traditions. It's most well known in the Buddhist tradition, where there's this concept of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So you take refuge in the teacher, the teachings, and the community of people who've gathered around the teachings or the teacher. And that same concept is used in the other Dharmic ways as well. You have it in Jainism. And I believe in Hinduism, although I was trying to kind of research that today and I couldn't find so much information. But certainly there's talk of taking refuge in the guru in some Hindu traditions, and I guess in the gods as well. But maybe somebody can enlighten me about that. It's used as a concept in Christianity and Islam as well. You talk about taking refuge in God or taking refuge in Allah. Again, I'm not sure about Judaism. If somebody knows if the concept of taking refuge is used in Judaism, do tell us. So I think when you see an idea repeated in many different spiritual traditions, I think it's a clue that we're onto something. It's a clue that there's a truth there, a universal truth that is expressed in all these different spiritual ways. And for those of us who pride ourselves on independent thinking, that we're free from dogma, free from the chains of religion, if you like, it's quite easy to see this concept as one which infantilizes us, that keeps us in a childlike position of being dependent upon a teacher, a teachings, a group. And we naturally rebel against that. But try this out. If you apply the perspective of a nature-based spirituality, and not even necessarily a nature-based spirituality like Druidry, but just the perspective of a human being trying to be as natural as possible. For me, suddenly letting go of any beliefs about what religion is trying to tell me, what I immediately see is I see a little crop of trees, little bent whitethorn trees up on the hills over there. There are the hills of the South Downs just up there. I can walk to them in 5 minutes. And up on these kind of rather barren hills, just by a dew pond, there's a cluster of trees, and the sheep nestle in under these trees to take shelter from the wind. And I think of the mountain huts. I've trekked a bit in New Zealand, and there's this amazing experience of where you've been walking on all day and you're tired and starting to get cold. And I remember once trekking up by the Nelson Lakes in the South Island, and it was unseasoned. It was in the spring or early summer, but it was incredibly cold, and it started to snow. And we found the mountain shelter. They're really good at that in New Zealand. And you go into the mountain shelter, and there's some wood for you to light your wood burning stove. Some kind people, previous visitors, leave a bit of heather. You're saying you're in Santa Monica, where you sit amongst raging wildfires. Our thoughts are really with you, Heather, and everyone who's having to suffer from that situation, obviously. Yes, so you're in this mountain hut, and shelter starts to take on a whole different feel. It's the most natural thing in the world. So that's at a physical level, just thinking about it from a natural point of view. Then you think about it from a relationship point of view, and one of the great things, I suppose, about a deep relationship and about falling in love and being close to somebody is that you can both provide shelter for each other. And when I was thinking about this, I thought of that beautiful song. It's gone out of my mind now. Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush. Don't give up. Don't give up. That's right. I found a video of it, and I put it on the blog post that accompanies this recording. Where she's hugging him and saying, don't give up, because he can't find a job and his self-esteem is in pieces. So the question then is, what sort of shelter are we seeking? There's the shelter that each of us can give each other as friends, as lovers, as parents, and as children to our parents too, when our parents get old, for instance, or ill. So it's huge. It's huge, actually. We provide shelter to people. People provide shelter to us. We provide shelter to animals. We might help out in a homeless shelter. We might engage in all of these activities. And I think it's a question of recognizing one's tenderness and needs. It's not about going into victim consciousness. I've titled this post Taking Refuge, Victim Consciousness, or I've forgotten that now. Victim consciousness or spiritual path, or something like that. And the process that happens in me when I recognize my need for shelter is a kind of softening and a kind of letting go of some of the trappings of my ego. It's like kind of spiritually undressing, which may be an unfortunate association of ideas, I don't know. But it's like, the way you're vulnerable. When you take your clothes off, you're vulnerable. And it's the same thing. You have to, in order to take shelter, you have to first accept your vulnerability. And until you've accepted your vulnerability, you can't really be open to the spiritual gift or benefit of taking shelter. What a relief it is not to have to be the soldier always standing on guard. What a relief it is to be able to take off your armor. What a relief it is to be able to shelter from the difficulties and the troubles of life that we all encounter at some stage in our lives, either in a spiritual teaching or in a community of like-minded souls, or in both, or in anything that provides a sense of safety and comfort and nourishment and inspiration. So that, I think, is one of the purposes of a spiritual way. You know, when I've thought about, you know, over the last 30 years of helping to lead the order, and whenever I've questioned, I think it's important to question whatever you do, is to every so often say, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right thing to be doing? Is this the best way I can be of service in the world? Is this the, you know, whenever I've done that, I've become aware of the fact that the value of a spiritual tradition, one of its values, is in it providing shelter in this way. Not in order to make people weak or to make people dependent, but quite the reverse, to actually help them become strong and to be shelters for other people too. So that's nice. Erica Rivertree is saying, synchronicity. I recently began a study of Druidry and the Dharma, and my path is now syncretic. In other words, combining Druidry and Dharma. I took refuge in the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and I correspond that with the Druid triad of, whoops, it's gone out of my vision. And I should be able to remember the Druid triad, but right at the moment, let's see if I can find it again. Lots and lots of quotes. It doesn't matter. The Druid triad of the finding the truth in light and so on. So let's use this as a way of slipping into a meditation. I can see your comments. Lisa saying it's a relief to be here with you all. This is a shelter. This place is a shelter. This, you know, if you know, when we watch the news, we see what's happening. For, you know, those of you in California, it's really close at hand, and it must be really, really worrying. For those of us further away, we feel for you and we empathize with you, and we imagine how awful it must be. And Jody says being truthful about vulnerability needs courage and strength. Exactly. It's so easy for us to take the spiritual path to try and make ourselves strong, which it partly is. It's paradoxical. On the one hand, we follow a spiritual way in order to become stronger, to have stronger hearts, stronger minds, stronger spirits. But at the same time, we need to kind of accept our vulnerability and our weakness. An interesting dynamic to look at, dialectic to look at. So this place is a shelter because it provides us of, you know, just 20 minutes or so on a Monday evening where we can be amongst like-minded folk, where we can feel peaceful and where we can meditate together. So let's do that now. Let's just slip into a meditative frame of mind, and I'll have a look at all your comments afterwards. Thank you for writing them. But now let's just focus on just becoming still and just taking a breath out and letting that breath out free us a little bit of all our tensions. And just becoming aware of being in a very safe space. Now, for many people here, it'll be a sacred grove, a clearing. If that's not a safe space for you, think of something else, but it's just being gathered together in a safe place. Trees around us, earth beneath us. The earth herself is a shelter for us. Its plants can shelter us and provide us with food, keep us dry from the rain. And so we honor the earth and we touch the earth with our hands, and we sense in our imaginations, we place the palms of our hands on the earth. And it's as if that enables us to see clairvoyantly into the earth. And as we look into the earth, we see all these creatures in there, these tiny little worms and little bugs and things and all the microorganisms, all this life in the earth. And we see the minerals and stones, crystals and soil, and the water, and the roots of trees and plants snaking their way through this earth. All this life, and we give thanks for this life, and we feel healed and helped by this. We allow our attention just to drift into the earth. At the same time, we allow the energy of the earth to flow up into us. And we see the sense of, and sense the protection and safety of the trees around us. And we breathe in the moisture in the air. There's just the right amount of moistness in the air. It's been raining recently, and there's just the odd little drop of rain coming from the leaves, just sliding off the leaves. But that feels fresh and it feels good. It's cool, but it's just the right temperature, really. Not hot, it's cool. And we look up at the sky and we feel the energy of the sky. And we breathe in the energy of the sky. And the energy of the sky meets the energy of the earth within the center of our beings. And as we become aware of this meeting of the energy of the earth and sky within the center of our beings, we move our awareness now to the center of our beings. And just be open in this moment to the idea of refuge and of shelter. And just ask yourself in the depths of your being, or just ask it out to the universe, to receive some insight into what this shelter might mean or look like for you. Just be open to whatever arises. It may be an image, it may be a thought, maybe a feeling. Just open to this feeling of safety, of protection, of refuge. In the Druid tradition, the wren is Druyen, the Druid bird. This tiniest of little birds is the bird that symbolizes the Druid. And the wren lives in a round nest. It's completely round. It's like an egg with a little hole in it where the wren flies in, hops in, and it sits in complete safety in this lovely cocoon. And maybe you're sitting in a nest. Whatever shelter you're in, you ask for the blessings of refuge, for a place of safety for your heart and your mind and your body. And you give thanks for the blessing of life, knowing that you can come back to this meditation at any time. Knowing too that if you didn't receive an insight straight away, it's something that may grow. You may have found an insight, or it may be something that comes in time with you, in your dreams or over the coming days, or by returning to this meditation. But for now, you allow any images that you saw to fade. And you find yourself seated in the sacred grove with your fellow seekers gathered around. And you place the palms of your hands on the earth, sending your love to the earth. May the earth, all her creatures, be preserved and protected. A blessing on our lives, a blessing on the land. And then you lift your arms up, place your palms on your heart. And then as you do this, your awareness of the clearing, the sacred grove begins to fade as you become aware of being seated here in this room, fully present, here and now. Well, these meditations always feel so short, don't they? But I think it's enough for this evening. And it's been really good to be with you. And this is a subject, I think, as well, you know, we have such a desire with our, well, at least I do, and I guess, you know, a lot of us do, have such a desire to get closure on stuff, to understand it all straight away. Just give me, you know, tell me like it is, give it all to me and let me understand it. But what's nice is to get used to letting things grow in their own time, to treating ideas like seeds that have a life of their own. And so that this concept of refuge can grow in our hearts and bring more meaning to us as we progress along the spiritual path. So many, many blessings. I have another meeting to go to now, so I will leave you. So see you next week, next Monday. And in the meanwhile, have a wonderful, wonderful week, and much love and blessings to you. Okay, bye.